Hi, my name is Tyler. I'm an engineer at Kamiwaza, and today I'm going to walk through a practical example of retrieval augmented generation using the Kamiwaza Python SDK. In our previous video, we showed how we could use the SDK to deploy and do inference on a model locally. We asked some questions like the capital of states or generating some code. All of this information was stored in the model's weights during pre-training. But what happens when we want to ask questions relevant to some of our company information, like this hypothetical Furry Friends Pet Supplies company we're going to use? That's where retrieval augmented generation comes in. It allows us to provide the model with relevant, up-to-date information when we ask a query. By the end of this video, our goal is to use the Kamiwaza Python SDK to ingest all of this information about this Furry Friends pet company, and then at inference time, when we ask questions, retrieve the relevant information and use it to supplement the model's answer. So let's begin. So first, we will begin by initializing our Kamiwaza client and connecting it to our local instance. Then we will ingest the data. So what we mean by this is we're going to take all of these documents and we're first going to load them into a Kamiwaza catalog. And then we'll take all of these raw text documents and chunk them into sizes that are capable of embeddings by the embedder that we have. And we'll have offset tracking. What this means is that when we actually go and retrieve that chunk, we'll be able to find what part of the document it was in. Next, we'll embed all of these chunks. And what this means is we're going to take this like raw text and we're going to transform it into a vector embedding that the model can then understand. And then we'll load that all into a vector database that we can retrieve from. So if we first take a look at what documents we have some break policy information, employee discount policy, time off requests, pretty much anything you'd expect for just a generic company. And then what we do here to define our ingestion config, we have to have a dataset path. So this is where all of these documents are located, right? And then we have a description of it and our collection name. So when we run this cell, what's going to happen is first it's going to go get all of those files and chunk them. And then it's going to embed each one of them. So it's processing them now. It's going to do it in batches, and I will come back when this is completed. All right, cool. So we can see what happened here as it went through each of these files. And first it chunked them. We had 534 chunks created. And then for each of those chunks, we generated vector embeddings for them, and we stored them into a vector database. So the next step here is to actually retrieve that information, and then we'll do the augmented generation. So for retrieval, we could think of a query that an employee may have, like, how do I log my break time? So if we ask that, what it's going to do is it's going to embed this query so it could be compared against our catalog of information. And then if we look at the results, this is going to be super messy. That's the point of the augmented generation. But what we can see is that it pulled from this break policy document. So we know that we're on the right track, that how do I log my break time is going to go look at the correct document chunks. So a more interpretable explanation of what we need to do here is to take these chunks and the query, give them both to the model, and have it come up with an answer given all this information, right? So this is just some boilerplate Kamiwaza code here to make sure that we have a local model running. All of this was in the previous notebook. And then this is just a simple function to give it the information and tell it to use the information in its response and to be concise. So if we think of a more complex question, what is the vacation policy during holidays? So if we run this, it's going to go retrieve the relevant chunks, take the query and the chunks, give it to the LLM, and have it give us a response. All right, so if we see here, the AI response is that at Furry Friends Pet Supplies, the vacation policy during the holiday season is as follows. So these are the peak times. Employees wishing to take this time off should be doing it at least 3 months in advance, and it's first come, first served. So if we come over here and look at the actual document that we provided with the model, we can see here that a standard request is at least 2 weeks, but during peak seasons, such as Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, they are required to submit at least 3 months in advance. And if we look down at the bottom here, we can see that it pulled from these files. So the time off request was obviously the most applicable one to this question that we asked. But this was an example of how we can use the Kamiwaza SDK in only a few lines of code to ingest a bunch of information and then do retrieval augmented generation on it. So there's a bunch of use cases that you could imagine could come out of this. And we're excited to see what everybody builds with it.